Shelter in Camp Allen, the camp site that's owned by our diocese. And I just like it. Today's reading is actually supposed to be from the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus is observing people in the house, and everyone's rushing to get the seat of honor. And Jesus says, whoever exhausts themselves will be humble. Whoever humble themselves to be exalted. Like, don't go and pick out this seat of honor, and yada yada yada. And I was going to say, hey, the way to talk about that is a dining table, a meal can be actually very political, right? Like if you look at who sits with who sits with where, what foods are eaten, there can be a very underlying, maybe unintentional, but an underlying message of whatever. But my heart wasn't in that, so I decided to just skip all the readings and do something on my own, which I know I'm not supposed to, but I'm not going to be here for a month, so if the bishops gets really mad, just think that I got suspended for a month or something. I began this work on July 1st, 2019. When I started, I had a building, but I had no people, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do, and also I had no idea what an Episcopalian was supposed to be. And so the diocese decided that I need to be trained by someone, so Father Jim Libator took me under his very old wings. He's retired, so he's not a young chicken. And I am grateful, obviously. I wouldn't be able to joke like this with Father Jim if I wasn't grateful for him. And we started this work, and I had in front of me a blank canvas, which is exciting in one sense that I can start doing things, planning things without hearing someone go, oh, we never done it that way. Oh, that's not how we do things around here, right? But a blank canvas is also a double-edged sword because on one hand, you have this freedom to not be tied down by previous expectations or whatnot, but also you have freedom, which is very scary because where do you start, right? So you have this paralysis by analysis because, well, should I start here? No, I should start here. No. Either way, the ball got rolling, and we were doing well, and I was getting people. I was having coffee with people. I was having lunch with people, and I was slowly starting to recruit my leadership team, and it was coming together as we were preparing for a launch in August 2020. But we all know what happened around February or March of 2020, and everyone's plans was affected, and including mine. And so we were stuck, but I still had this hope. I still had this vision. And the invitation to create something new never stopped. So we slowly but surely moved onward. We moved onward and forward. And some days it felt like we were covering a lot of ground. We were making strides, right? Yes. And other days it felt like we were barely making anything, just taking half of baby steps forward. But regardless, we were always moving forward. In the meantime, I wasn't taking care of myself the way that one should. But more importantly, somewhere along the line, I developed a huge distrust of my colleagues. Not because they were bad, but because they were different. There is this weird elitism that comes from Episcopalian priests. Like they don't mean to be, but there's this snobbishness that comes out of conversations. And I didn't want some snobby Episcopal priest that had no idea what we were doing here come and be like, oh, this is not how you do things around. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that. So I didn't want anyone else that I didn't trust to come and mess up the work that I've done. But really, it was me holding on too tightly, onto something that was never meant to be held tightly. So I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and I was afraid to miss Sundays. I think in the 5 years I've been doing this, I think I missed maybe 3 or 4 Sundays. I gave myself an out inviting people to preach on Sundays because that gave me, that was a lot of load off my weekly plate. And around 2021, 2022, anytime someone sneezed, anytime someone coughed, my mind would just go on a spiral because I was like, oh, great, I have COVID now. Right? Even the fact that I say the word, I feel my system just like ratcheting up. Because if I got COVID, I can't come to church. And that's going to ruin everything. And so for 2 years, I was on high anxiety because I was so afraid. In fact, I'm surprised I didn't get sick because when you're so preoccupied with something, it's bound to happen to you. No, wait. And I was holding on to this so tightly. It's not that I didn't want to let go. At some point, you just forget to let go. You don't know how to let go. And you hold on to something so tightly that it starts to become exhausting. You hold on to everything. You know, each Spider-Man has that scene. But I'm talking about Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man where he's stopping the New York train, Spider-Man 2, and he spreads and he's holding the train, and he's just holding everything for dear life, you know, and that's exhausting. Spider-Man passes out after that without his mask, but no one. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. You end up becoming you're holding on so tightly that you just end up becoming exhausted. There's another passage in Exodus where Moses tells the enslaved Israelites that God is going to do something new. God is going to free you. God is going to come and liberate you. And the writer says that the people were too exhausted to hear anything that God was doing. And I was holding on to something so tightly that I couldn't hear anything new. So I was just moving, going through the motions in hopes that something somewhere will change. And that something that changed was me, because I crashed and burned. There is no way you can sustain holding back or holding on to something so tightly. And it was something I was definitely afraid to admit, because it's all up like, you know, there's a level of pride. I'm not going to be. That's for those pastors. Me, no. I'm not only am I a pastor, I'm a Korean pastor. Suffering is in our blood. We are not doing faith right unless we are suffering. The last Korean pastor I worked for said, the problem with your generation is you look for happiness and joy in ministry. There is no joy in ministry. We are here to suffer in the name of God. And I said, well, I'm out. It's stupid because all of this was completely avoidable. If only I let go. If only I not just trust in God, but trust in my peers and trust in you. Because what was really happening in the back of my mind is, if I'm not there, everything's going to fall apart, which is the worst space for a pastor to be in. Because then the church becomes about the pastor and not about us. So here we are. I am untangling the spiritual mess that I got myself into, and the cost is I don't get to be with you for a month. But I believe that this will be good. It'll definitely be good for me, but it'll be good for us as a church because it can show everyone that we are a community based upon that community. And listen, I understand this unique role as a pastor in that a lot of times the face of the church happens to be the pastor, for better or for worse. People come to church because they relate or resonate with something that the pastor does, right? And in this weird season of my life, I know that people come because they found me on Facebook or Instagram and they just want to know what it's like to be part of, or what's like to hear a whole 15-minute sermon instead of a 2-minute thing. I get that. I get that people might come because of me. However, I know without doubt that people stay because of you. They stay because you opened your arms, your heart, and gave them space. You saved the seat. You go greet them. You help people, the newcomers, the guests to come here to feel welcome and feel loved. And oh, you glad you're here. You know, you belonged the entire time. Even though when you weren't here, we knew that you belonged here. It is you that keeps people to stay. And this is why this is a shared work. We are in this together. And I have to remind myself over and over and over, I am not meant to live on an island. And so, as I was trying to figure out how to use the Luke passage to leverage, I was like, you know what, that's too much work. Let's just take a risk and skip the lectionary reading and see what anyone says if they see this online. So in Exodus 24, chapter 24, verse 12, God says to Moses, "Come up to the mountain and wait there." And in Hebrew, I didn't put the Hebrew word on there. Hebrew, it's two words. It's ve-yasham, and it means be there. So there have been a lot of phrases, a lot of discussion, a lot of discourse throughout the centuries about what these two phrases, be there in Hebrew, means. And I'm going to share 4 of these interpretations in hopes that 1 or 2 or 3 or all 4 resonates with you. The first interpretation comes from the Midrash. And the Midrash is commentaries on the scriptures. So basically, these rabbis would tell stories to fill in the blanks because, the Bible has lots of gaps in between stories. So the rabbis would come up and tell stories, and the more relevant the story is, the longer it stayed in tradition. So the Midrash says, why would God tell Moses, come up the mountain, and when you're on the mountain, be on the mountain? It's very redundant. And they answered, well, God wasn't wasting words. God was teaching that presence itself is holy. Moses didn't need to perform once he got on top of the mountain. He didn't need to impress God with his rituals, with his prayers, with his knowledge. He just needed to climb and be there. And that was enough, because presence is enough. And that can be a radical thought for us, because we still live in a culture where your worth is determined upon your output. How many emails you've answered, how many hours you worked, how many sales you made, how many clients you talked to. Even in churches, we measure ourselves. How many people showed up? How many places came in? How many ministries have you run? But God says presence is holiness. Think about the way that changes how you see prayer. You may feel distracted. You may feel like your words are not enough. You may feel confused. You may feel like I have nothing to say. But if you show up and just be there, that's holiness, because presence is holiness. Think about the way that it changes the way you view worship. Some of you are here because you want to be here. Some of you are here because you were forced to be here. Some of you are here and you have no idea what you're here. Some of you are here with light hearts. Some of you are here with very, very grieving, heavy hearts. But you're here. And if you're here and you sit in God's presence, that is holiness. Jesus says to us, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there. He did not say, where 2 or 3 gather with eloquent words, where 2 or 3 gather with an agenda, where 2 or 3 gathered with confidence, where 2 or 3 spiritually strong people are, no, where 2 or 3 simply gathered and simply present. So if you ever feel like you don't have enough to offer, remember this: your presence is enough, because presence is holiness. The second interpretation comes from Rashi, great medieval rabbi. He noticed that God didn't give specific instructions to Moses once he got up on the top. No task, no agenda, just be there. And that could be terrifying. You know, one of my biggest pet peeves is going to a diocesan, or when I was a Methodist conference meeting, a district meeting, and there's no agenda, and we spend 30 minutes just sitting there talking about how everyone's going. I'm just sitting there like, this could have been an email. This could have been an email. And so I start drifting out, looking out the window, and I get in trouble for not paying it. Whatever. We want an agenda. We want to know what's next. We want God to hand us a blueprint and say, okay, you do this and this and this and this and this and go this way. But God today gives Moses no roadmap, no assignment. Just simply stay. And some of you know what that feeling is. You've made the climb. You've survived the heartbreak. You survived the diagnosis. You survived the upheaval in your life. And now you don't know what's next. So you're just sitting there in the in-between with no clear plan, with no certainty, just waiting. And it feels uncomfortable because you feel useless. You feel like, I need to do something. I should be doing something. What can I be doing? But what if the pause is the point? What if God's will is sometimes not a plan, but a posture? Not an instruction, but an invitation to breathe. And it can be hard because, again, we want to feel useful. I like to know what's next, but perhaps God is just whispering to us, especially to me, just be there, to wait without a roadmap. And maybe that's what God is telling us at Mosaic, that we don't have to have every single detail of the future figured out right now. We don't need to write a 10-year plan. And maybe our job right now, right here, is to be here, to wait in God's presence, to trust that God is leading us to wherever we need to go in God's time. Sometimes faith looks like movement, but also sometimes faith looks like waiting without a plan. The third interpretation comes from the Hasidic tradition from Baal Shem Tov. I'm so sorry. I barely speak English. I barely speak Korean. I know 2 languages and I don't know them at all. And now I'm trying to say some Hebrew words. Baal Shem. He took this verse and he widened it. He says, wherever you are, be there. Because here's the truth. Most of us are rarely present. We're at dinner, but thinking about tomorrow's meeting. You might be sitting here and thinking about, well, if we get out at 11 and we rush to the restaurant that's about 15 minutes away, we might beat the early church crowd, and we might actually get ourselves a table. Or maybe you're thinking to yourself, did I close the garage door? I don't remember pressing the thing. Or did I remember to turn off the stove after making oatmeal? Like we're not here. My son has picked up a horrible habit that is a testament to me. And he reminds me, and my wife reminds me, look what you made your son do. About, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, maybe somewhere this year, I started noticing him doing something. He would say, answer me, Daddy. I was like, what? And I realized he needed to say that because he would ask a question, and I'm here next to him, but I'm, La La Land. Joseph in the Old Testament that I am named after, he's a dreamer, and I've lived up to that name. Also, in Genesis 39:6, it says that Joseph was well-built and she said, stop. She knew exactly where I was going. The Bible says that Joseph was well-built and handsome. That's all I'm saying. I am living up to all of that. I'm not well-built, but I will be. You say, answer me, because he will ask me something, and I didn't hear it, because while I'm physically here, I'm somewhere else. Our bodies are here, but our minds might be elsewhere. And the Baal Shem Tov says, presence itself is prayer. To be where you are is to honor God. And Jesus taught something similar in Matthew. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today. He's saying, be here, today, now. I mean, what would it look like if we actually lived like that? What would it look like if we were fully present to the people in front of us, fully present in worship, fully present in our own lives? For Mosaic, this means that we're not living in someday. We're not living in, when we get a new building. We're not living in when we get this amount of people, or when we get this amount of pledges, when we get this amount of whatever. What we need to do is know God is here now. God is moving now. For wherever you are, be there. Because if you are always living in tomorrow, you will miss out on what God is doing right here, right now. And the fourth interpretation comes from Zohar. which is a mystical text, and it's very similar to what the Baal Shem Tov said. And the mystics in the Zohar says that Moses could be on the top of the mountain and not be there. His body could be present, but his heart could be far away, right? And I just described to you what that looks like. But Zohar says be there means bring your whole self, body, heart, mind, spirit, into God's presence. Align yourself to God's presence. Don't just stand there. Be there. And that's sometimes harder than climbing the mountain itself. Climbing takes legs. Alignment takes soul. But that's what God wants. God doesn't want a fragment of you. God doesn't want a piece of you. God doesn't want parts of you. God wants the all of you, the whole of you. And this echoes the greatest commandment that Jesus gave us. Love the Lord, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Not just your heart, not just your strength, not just your mind, but with all of you. Not just your attendance, but your alignment. For Mosaic, this may mean that we're not just occupying this building in West Pearland, but we are fully present here. We're not just saying that we're inclusive, but we are aligning our actions with our words. We're not just being a church by name, but being wholly who God is calling us to be. Because be there is not just about geography, it's about alignment. So you have these four interpretations. Sometimes be there means just show up. Presence is holiness. Sometimes it means accept the pause, wait without a roadmap. Sometimes it means stop living half present. Wherever you are, be there. And sometimes it can mean that you align your whole being with God's presence. All that from these two words in Hebrew, which translate to be there. This is why when people say, well, the Bible says, I'm like, well, what does it say? Because look how many, just two words, and we have three and a half, because the 3 and 4 are kind of similar. We have completely different meanings. And as I step into my sabbatical tomorrow, that is my assignment, to remind myself to stop being such a human doing and to learn again how to be. To wait, to be present, to align myself with God. And my prayer is that while I'm gone, Mosaic you guys will do the same, that you'll keep showing up, that you'll keep being present to each other, that you'll keep aligning your whole self with the God who is already here. Because the church is not about me. It has never been about me. Mosaic Episcopal Church, if it is about me, well, then I want a private jet. And fair. This is about the work that we are doing together and what God is doing. This church does not belong to me. It does not belong to you. It belongs to God, and we are simply stewards of what God has entrusted us with. And our prayer is that we will be faithful to what God has entrusted us with. And so this is why we are in this together. And for you, simply being part of Mosaic, you also are church planters. I'm not the only church planter because there's all of us. Everything that you do, your attendance, you're talking about Mosaic with other people, you're connecting with others. That is what makes us us. So while I take time to rest, to refresh, to renew, to realign, to reorient, to reprioritize, to remember who I am in God's eyes, it is on you to keep going, to keep welcoming, to keep worshiping, to keep being present, to keep being there, to keep loving one another and others. And when I come back, may we find each other renewed, more human, more whole, more present to God and each other. May we be reminded that we are not what we produce. We are not what we put out. We are simply a beloved human being. You are God's child. And sometimes the holiest thing that we can do is simply be present. So my prayer for you and for me is, as we go through this, whatever may happen in September, it's going to be holy and it's going to be good. I already am, there's this little voice in the back of my head that wants to come in and check on everything and kind of text Jen, how did everything go? But I am not. I am not, because that defeats the whole purpose. But while we are apart, I trust that God still holds us connected. I will continue to pray for you, and I hope that you pray for me. And I hope that we continue to be a place where Jesus is known and where Jesus is made known. And I trust that you will take the work and continue to be your loving and lovely self and show people what God is doing through us and through you. If you're able, please stand and let